Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment, appropriately enough, brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. Is your roof more than a decade old? Have you spotted granules coming down your gutters and onto your driveway? Do you see black streaks on your roof? All those could be warning signs that your home is already dealing with water damage beneath your roof. Call Daniel Hood Roofing this week for a free inspection. They'll come up, check it, and the thing is, they don't just tell you, yeah, here's what we found. They've got video cameras, they've got tools, they can bring that down and show you exactly, here's what we're seeing in terms of the moisture level, here's where it is, here's why it is, this is what you need to do to counteract this. They do great work, danielhoodroofing.com. And now we're joined by Daniel Hood right over here. Daniel, how are you, sir?
Doing well.
All right, thanks for being with us. I'm going to start with you. Do you feel the Vols are doing enough in the transfer portal, considering the guys that they kept out of it? I mean, that's part of it. You didn't lose James Pierce. Cooper Mays is back. You know, you kept most of your offensive linemen. Did you expect them to make a bigger splash, or no?
I'd hoped that they would, so that the team could take the next step of competing with Alabama and Georgia's and those type of people. But I'm also not surprised by it at the same time. It feels like Josh Heupel is one of these guys that wants to build the camaraderie of the team. Like, you got to get all the guys in the boat. We got to be rowing the boat all at the same time, and that's got to be done not just over the course of just one spring practice. We need those guys for years on end, and it seems like a lot of kids have bought into that, which is why they didn't lose as many, like you were saying, with James Pierce, the offensive line, and those guys. But it doesn't feel like he doesn't want to be great at that. That's not where he wants to go.
Ryan, do you think it's fair to say, and obviously not just this year, but over the last 2-3 years since we've seen him, he and Lane Kiffin seem to be on two different tracks. One guy is happy with burning down his program and starting from scratch every year. The other guy wants as little muss as possible, it seems. Is that a fair assessment? It's overdone, but is it fair?
I think it is, but it's somewhat out of necessity, I think, for Lane Kiffin. When you have fewer resources NIL-wise, and I think they do at Ole Miss, you have to decide where you want to devote them, where you're going to get the most efficiency out of them. That's in the transfer portal where you can get immediate impact players.
Proven guys.
Yes, and I think there is still a long-term discussion here. Is it smarter to lean more that direction because there is better return on investment? Sometimes these high school players sit for a year or two before you ever see anything from them, and sometimes they get frustrated waiting. And so there's a challenge.
Emmanuel Okoye, maybe.
Well, I mean, that's certainly an example, but there are several others on this team. You know, guys that haven't gotten on the field right away, and we'll see this freshman class coming in. Guys like Mike Matthews, can they get on the field early? So, I mean, you do have to wait for those guys to play. Transfer portal, you know what you're getting.
When you typically have a receiving core that is 3 men deep, there's not a lot of guys who are going to get in there. The other thing, though, that we haven't seen with Lane Kiffin is, and I think it's going to be difficult. He may prove me wrong. He's done better than I thought he would do. Mm-hmm. But can you sustain that? I have a feeling that program is going to be more of this than a program that builds the way Josh Heupel is building.
Well, if you look at it, I just think that's not the way you build a roster in college football if you want to have success. Lane brought in 23 guys last year. None of them were particularly good and didn't play a lot of them. If you look at Alabama and Georgia, they're 12th and 13th in 247's rankings of the transfer portal in 2023. Each of them got one starter out of the portal. One, the safety for Alabama, the second wide receiver for Georgia. That's it. Missouri was number 11. They had a pretty good year. Look at the other 9 of the top 10 in the 247 rankings. All disappointing seasons within the SEC. I just think the way you build a roster is high school. It's supplements, right? You can supplement a player. It's like a protein shake. You want to get with your food with your recruiting, but then you go to the transfer portal if you're not getting enough protein to get a protein shake.
My buddies at Smoothie King would agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, Chuck, you chime in here, and then I
don't think they are doing enough. And I think you've got immediate needs that you can identify that have been holding you back. Maybe you've got some young guys coming up in the secondary, but have you got those cover corners that everybody covets that are so hard to find? Have you got like a strong safety or a safety type player you can go get that really strikes fear in the heart of some receivers? No, I don't think so. Florida, and I'm not using them as an example, I think they have dedicated assistant coaches, and that's their job. If I was a graduate assistant at the University of Tennessee, I'd be all over this. I would be all over this as a way to show I should be on this staff full time.
I have a feeling they all do. I mean, you've got, how many assistants does Heupel have? 450? I mean, they got somebody over there.
Who is it? Tennessee hired Billy High, who ran Mac Brown's recruiting department at North Carolina.
Yeah.
And he oversees transfer portal. So, brother of Charlie High that played quarterback at CAK.
You don't have to tell me.
So, anyway. But anyway, so you have people overseeing that. But the issue is, does the head coach want to go that direction? It's to Will's point. Do you want to lean heavily on the transfer portal? I think there's a good sign this year that you had big needs at tight end, cornerback, wide receiver, and now offensive tackle, and you appear to be addressing those with big-time additions from the portal. It's not perfect, but it's a step in the
Big-time
right.
additions from the portal.
I think Holden Stays currently ranked the #1 tight end in the portal on 24/7 Sports.
But here's the thing for me about Holden Stays. Go look at what he did last year. He had like 200 yards receiving. That's the thing about. That's the other thing.
He had a
about the
100-yard
portal.
game.
Well,
when he,
and
so
nothing the rest of the year.
but he wasn't a starter. I mean, at Notre Dame is
Well, I'm
a
not
part-time
knocking-
starter. Yeah.
He may be great. My problem with the portal is we all sit there and we go, look what Lane Kiffin is doing. It's like, as Will said,
Right.
yeah, 9 of them are 3 stars,
Yeah.
and 8 of the 9 never played. We're trading these guys who, he had 7 snaps last year at Notre Dame. We wanted rid of our guy who had 8 snaps here. It's like a lot
We'll
of
trade
it's
your
legacy
backups
work.
for our backups, and then we'll pay a bunch of money to everybody in the process, right?
The only other question I had with that too is that I wonder if the system of Josh Heupel hurts him in the transfer portal, especially on the defensive side of things. You know, we've kind of talked about that ad nauseum, but if you're a defensive back, I don't know if you'd want to come to Tennessee. If you're a true elite guy, you're going to be left out on the field. You're going to get put in a lot of bad situations, and you're going to play 110 snaps a game. And sometimes that film turns out bad. On the flip side of that, if you're an offensive guy, you know, this seems to be, if I'm a receiver, I can come in and go right away. But the defensive side, I'm worried about. I don't know if I would transfer here if I was an elite defensive player choosing UT, unless it was defensive line.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about that from the beginning, and it's also
Yeah.
true of recruiting, too. I mean, that's the thing he's going to overcome. I would think that his offense, he can sit here with this shiny bauble and say, you want to come play in this? And they're going to be like, yeah. And then it's like, or you can get on our defense, which has been better than I expected the last couple of years. But still, that's the one where he's going to have to recruit in spite of, as opposed to just throwing it out there and say, looky here, come join it. Chuck, go ahead.
Well, I'm just looking at it. We've said this before. Josh Heupel can win with 3-star type talent on offense, right? We agree.
Well, we
on
thought
that.
so.
Yeah, we thought so. But I mean,
You went to an
I
8 and
think
4 level.
But if you want to take the next step, if you want to beat Georgia, if you want to beat Alabama consistently, you've got to have better talent on defense than what you've had so far.
Well, on defense, he's got 2 5-stars that just came in with this class. Then you got Nico from the last class. So suddenly you got 3 5-stars on your team, whereas 2 years ago you had none. So
Right,
that's
so,
stepping
I mean,
right
that's
up.
all.
But if you look like just at the wide receiver position, we went through this on our show a few days ago. And if you go the history of the transfer portal, you know the number of wide receivers that in year 1 caught 60 balls or more in the 3-year history of the transfer portal? 1.
There you go.
Wandale Robinson in Kentucky.
Well, and I was looking at, again, it's Pro Football Focus. Do you believe those guys? Do you not believe those guys? But if you're just looking at the grades, I was a guy who said, go get Evan Stewart, too. Evan Stewart's just a hot shot. Everybody wants Evan Stewart. You know who graded out better last year? Chris Brazell, who they got from Tulane, had a better grade than Evan Stewart. Now, that's the other thing about this Jacoby Thomas from MTSU. I had somebody email me, don't talk bad about him. He'll be great. He's better than any of these guys you're losing. Not according to Pro Football Focus. However, maybe UT knows how to coach him in a way that MTSU doesn't, or they look at it and say, yeah, I'm not going to use him for that. I'm just going to use him for this, and this is all I need him to do. So we don't know. We're just playing with, 5-star versus 4-star. But I just look at it, if I've got Nico Iamaleava, I'm trying to load up as best I can to take advantage of the 2 years I know I'm going to have him.
Right.
That's my only question is, should they be doing more? And if they aren't, is it by choice? It appears to be by choice as opposed to we're out of NIL money or we just can't recruit.
I think they've taken a more cautious approach to the transfer portal in past years. If I'm a Tennessee fan, if they finish the deal with Lance Hurd, that's a big-time
good.
addition. I mean, this is a top 15 player in the country
Right.
coming out of high school, 1 year removed from that. That's the kind of player we've not seen Tennessee get out of the portal before.
Very good. All right, we're way over, which means we're going to speed it up when we come back. When we talk about, oh, wait, you can hear the church bells ringing. Nick Saban's retiring. It's the night they drove old Bama down. Come on back on the Sports Source. We'll talk about Nick Saban. Adios.